mic on, could you turn it off, please? And just until we get started, if you don't mind, thanks. All right, looks like we are just about ready to go for our video update. We have just about another minute before 2 o'clock, and we want to start right at 2 o'clock. And just a quick reminder that we are in seminar right now, and what we'll have coming up just ahead is some updated information on the situation from the CSRD as far as structures, and also we'll get a wildfire update. And we'll start things off here in about 30 seconds. Please stand by. Thank you very much for joining us for this update. Let me just fix my chair here. And this is our wildfire information briefing for August 25th, 2023 for the Bush Creek East wildfire K21633. We're joining you from the traditional unceded territories of the Shuswap, Syilx, Okanagan, Syilx, and Ktunaxa Nation. And we do appreciate you joining us for this. I'm Erick Thompson. I'm an information officer with the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, the CSRD Emergency Operations Center, and Tracy Hughes is here. Tracy is an information officer. She's the section lead for the Emergency Operations Center for the information section. And Erick Sutherland, he is the EOC Director and Protective Services Team Leader with the CSRD. Mike McCulley will join us in just a few moments. He's with BC Wildfire Service, and he is an information officer. And we will be getting to media questions in just a few moments, but we have some very important information to share. Canada Task Force 1 has conducted a rapid damage assessment in areas deemed safe for entry. However, please be aware there are still active wildfires in the region where property assessments could not be carried out. As of today, August 25th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, here are the approximate figures related to structure damage. 131 is the number of total structures lost due to this wildfire. Partial structure damage, 37 structures. Please visit the CSRD interactive map. You can find that at www.csrd.bc.ca. That will be updated a little bit later on today based on the Canada Task Force 1 assessments. That work is being done right now. It has been in progress for a while. Erick Sutherland will talk a bit more about that, building this in a short turnaround and making sure the information is accurate and available. You'll be able to search your property address to view its status, and the CSRD will provide an update once that is available and released. Please note these numbers are approximate. Full damage assessments have been hindered by ongoing wildfires, as you know, in the region. The CSRD is committed to supporting the community members during this very challenging time, and will be individually contacting property owners to facilitate and to assist you. If you have any questions or any assistance or inquiries, please contact the CSRD Emergency Operations Center. The number is 250-833-3350. That's 833-3350. Remember, call takers will be very busy. There's a lot of interest. You may want to continue watching this briefing before you make the call. The CSRD is here to help to the best of the abilities of the staff and everyone involved, and we ask everyone to continue to please stay safe. Let's talk to Erick Sutherland now. Erick, this is certainly information people have been waiting for, and preparing it has been quite a task.
Yeah, so the staff in the Emergency Operations Center have been working all through the morning and into the afternoon here to get these numbers, to try and get the best numbers that we have at the moment, but they are subject to change. These are preliminary. There are areas that Canada Task Force 1 wasn't able to get to because of danger trees and dangerous situations and firefighting efforts in the area. So we're not sure what's exactly happening in those areas, but these are the numbers that we have at the moment. Members of the public will be able to see their properties online through our dashboard tool, which is also being developed now, and we're hoping to have that up and running later this afternoon.
Really important point that Tracy just shared with me. No lives lost. in this entire situation, which is vitally important.
Yeah, at this point, we've worked with Canada Task Force 1 and the RCMP and other agencies. They are reporting to the best of our knowledge at this time. There has been no lives lost as a result of this wildfire. We've heard over the past days how intense this fire behavior was. So we're all very grateful that no lives appear to have been lost and that public safety has been the paramount concern here. There were cheers in our EOC when we've heard about this news. So certainly we're hoping going forward that this is why public safety continues to be a #1 priority. This is still an unsafe situation. And these are why we're making the decisions that we're making, is to ensure that number doesn't change.
Thank you, Tracy. We're going to, in just a few moments, hear from Mike McCulley with the latest on the wildfire. As Tracy said, this is still a serious situation with this wildfire, the Bush Creek East wildfire. We'll hear from Mike in just a moment. I want to reiterate those numbers in case you missed it. Total structures lost 131, and that is in the CSRD, the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, and partial structure damage 37. As Derek Sutherland mentioned, there is a GIS site, a website available where this information will be available within the next looking like a couple of hours at the most.
Yeah, we're targeting 4 o'clock. Please be patient with us, but we're going to get that up just as soon as we possibly can.
And the plan then is to also contact residents who have been affected directly, contact them directly.
That's right. So those residents that we have a contact for, we will be reaching out directly. And those residents that we don't have a contact for, we will be looking in the future to get your contact and for you to contact us with your information.
I know there will be a lot of questions, not only from the public, but of course the media, and they're joining us for a Q&A. We'll go to a quick Q&A. We'll have time for a couple of questions, and then we want to bring Mike McCulley in from the BC Wildfire Service and see where we're at with this fire, especially with the weather change. So let's take a look now and see if we have any hands up from the media. I don't see any just now. I'm sure we will. There's Barbara. Barbara, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I noticed in your previous update, you mentioned that you're starting to get supplies in and you're working with your neighborhood emergency coordinators. Can you identify where those locations are and how that's going?
Yeah, Barb, I can give you an update. We've resupplied the Ross Creek store. We're also resupplying the Anglemont Marina and the Lakeview Center. We're sending supplies to Lakeview Center to volunteers. We're also sending a bunch of donations to the Lakeview Center to be disseminated out of there.
All right, Barb.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Now, I was told just a short time ago by folks working in operations here in the Emergency Operations Center that the barge that's running back and forth right now, can you confirm the locations where that barge is shuttling to?
No, I can't.
Okay, that's okay, but people out there will know where it is.
Yeah.
I don't have the information handy, but basically the barge is being used for some dangerous goods as well as other goods. So anyone who wants to use that barge needs to contact the Emergency Operations Center directly. You can't show up and just assume you could get on only because of the dangerous goods and some of the planning that's gone in, but certainly making sure people have access to it is very important. It just has to be scheduled. So if you can call the Emergency Operations Center at 250-833-3350. 3350. Two other quick notices before we get back to media questions. Highway 1 between Sorrento and Chase is open, but it is travel through only. You're not able to stop along the way or take any of the turns off of there. It's meant for travel through because, of course, the evacuation order remains in place. Mail delivery for North Shuswap has been held at the Chase Post Office and can be picked up during regular business hours. Again, that's mail delivery. The mail for North Shuswap is at the Chase Post Office. And the Sorrento Post Office remains under an evacuation order and mail will be held until further notice, but hopefully distributed as soon as possible. Very quickly, that's an important point, is that the status of these alerts and orders that are underway right now being looked at regularly by BC Wildfire and the CSRD and will be adjusted as the situation warrants.
Absolutely. So we ask every day if how the safety conditions in the area will warrant an order rescind or an alert rescind. And I know that there's conversations going on right now in the EOC between us and BC Wildfire.
Let's go to Carrie Tate now for another question from the media. Go ahead, please, Carrie.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. It's the pretty straightforward one. I'm wondering if you can give us an update on the hectares and how many BC Wildfire Service firefighters are working on the fire.
We'll get to that in just a moment when we bring in Mike McCulley. He is the information officer who's just transitioned in, taking over from Forest Tower. So we'll have that for you in just a moment. If I can ask for you to just give us a couple of minutes. Let's go to Will now. We have a question from Will for the panel, or we could start to bring in Mike McCulley if you have a question for him. Go ahead, Will. All right, we don't want to wait for too long. We want to keep going. Oh, there we go. Go ahead, Will.
I was just going to have a question about access to the north of the Shuswap, Seymour Arm, and St. Ives, and those areas. Are they able to come go back and forth through the Squilax area?
Yeah, so they're not able to go back through Squilax Engelmont Road. We have had forestry upgrade the North Fork route, which goes around and comes out by Malacqua. And we do have the barge option available out of Engelmont and Magna Bay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, it looks like, we have Cameron Mitchell. I believe Cameron's with CTV. Cameron, go ahead, please. Cameron, did you have a question? Hi, Cameron, can you hear us? All right, well, we're going to move on. I want to bring in Mike McCulley. Mike is an information officer with BC Wildfire Service. Mike, we'll ask you for your update in just a moment, but first of all, you did hear there was a question earlier about access and conditions and that type of thing. Can you just, if you don't mind, first of all, welcome and thank you very much for joining us. I know you're just getting up to speed on everything and you've just come into the area.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Erick.
Yeah, just wondering if you could talk a little bit about when we hear about danger trees, when we hear about some of these areas that remain under evacuation order, there are a whole host of potential dangers, and that's why some of these areas still remain under order. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I will. And first, I'll just introduce myself a little. So yes, I'm Mike McCulley. I'm the information officer with the BC Wildfire Service, currently assigned to the Bush Creek East complex here. I have just been in for a day, so I will give you the best info I can today. If I don't know it, I'll find it out for you, and I do apologize. I also wanted to thank Forest Tower and his team for the awesome job they did in the last week, last 2 weeks, frankly, a very challenging deployment for them, for all of you as well. So just thanks. I have traveled here from the traditional territory of the Quagga people on North Vancouver Island. I'm really humbled to be here, working as a guest in these other territories. So that's who I am. I will be talking about the entire complex, which includes 2 fires. But to your question, Eric, around hazard. So certainly with the BC Wildfire Service, we're always looking, as the others on the call mentioned, at the hazard and the risk related to wildfire. And we're making recommendations regularly. We look at these things hour by hour through every day. We do want people to go home as quickly as we can. Our focus is wildfire, but as Eric described, there's many other hazards out on the land after wildfire. There is danger trees that need to be managed and dealt with. And, danger trees, if you've been paying attention this year, are fatal and they can kill people. And that does happen, and it has happened this year. So that's not something to be taken lightly. Some of the other hazards you may see in a wildfire area include, toxins from burnt material and hazards that exist. I've seen power poles half burnt and still smoking, lines down on the ground. There's often shutdowns in power that cause, rotting food and septic to be not managed. So there's a massive effort that needs to be undertaken to sort of firm up an area and make it somewhat safe before you can go home. This is the really hard and challenging work that the regional district and their team have to do. We try to support it where we can as an agency, but frankly, it's much more complex than just what is the risk based on wildfire. Even assessing the risk from a wildfire perspective is very challenging. And when I show my map, you'll see why. There's lots of nuances day to day that challenge our decisions on that. Is it safe or is it not? I'm happy to talk about that when I show my map, but certainly it's not something that's easy. It takes a team of experts to do. We're looking at, fire behavior. We have meteorologists helping us, our operational staff who have experience in fire growth. We do a lot of modeling with software to try to determine what the risk of fire is. Again, only one piece of the puzzle, and certainly a really big challenge for the local governments and the regional districts to sort out. But I can assure you that for all of us, our main intention is to try to get you home as quickly as we can. We work closely together. We spend a lot of time communicating. It's very important. Sorry, I wasn't able to hear you, Eric, there.
That's. Sorry about that.
We're playing Mike tag.
We were muted. I do appreciate your update, Mike, and if you could share your map with us, please, and give us a quick update on the Bush Creek East wildfire.
Certainly. Just let me know when you can see my screen, please.
Yeah, we can see your screen now. We can see Zoom. There we go. We see the map. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm just going to shut this down. So again, I will apologize in advance. I will not have the same level of detail that Forrest has, at least not today. If you need it, please reach out and I'll happily get it for you. But certainly as the days go forward, I will become more and more versed on this fire. So I think there was a question about the numbers and we'll start with those. The size of the fire really has not grown in the last 72 hours. Latest mapping tells us that the fire is just over 41,000 hectares in size. We have 113 structural personnel on the fire, 101 firefighters. We have over 100 pieces of heavy equipment on the fire, and that's a significant effort. That's a lot to manage. It takes a lot of ground staff to work with that equipment. And we also have 17 helicopters assigned to the entire complex, of which most of them spent a fairly large portion of their time yesterday working on the Bush Creek East fire. So those are the numbers, and I will remind everybody that those numbers are available on our website. You don't have to wait to ask me. I'm happy to tell them to you, but on the BC Wildfire website, you can find under the fires of note, that information will be existing. So there's the numbers for you. I'm going to talk first about the general fire activity. Again, not a lot of growth over the last 72 hours, which is good news. We've had a bit cooler weather, a little higher humidity at night. And the other thing that happens to us around this time of year is the days start to get shorter and the nights get longer. That is a huge advantage for us, much more so than people would expect. It just allows for a little bit more recovery at night, and recovery being an increase in humidity and a little cooler temperatures that cause fire behavior to go down. So those are kind of some of the things that have been working in our favor. Now, having said that, when you look at the forecast for the next 3 or 4 days, we are looking at continually increasing temperatures, approaching 30 degrees again here by sort of late weekend. Humidity is dropping down under 30, which can cause really challenging fire conditions. So we do know that fire behavior will pick up in this area again in the coming days, but we have our crews back out on the ground. We have 5-unit crews working on this fire today again, 101 ground crew, focusing on some of our priority areas, such as the southeast flank. They continue to work hard to tie in a guard line from the railway up to a cut block. These are priority areas for us close to communities. We have crews working on several of those, crews on the east flank, up in the west, northwest areas, and even up into the Lee Creek area. So we do have our crews out. We are working hard. We'll be trying to capitalize on the weather we have. But having said that, not sure what the long-term future looks like. We know it's going to be hot and dry through the week, though, and we will see fire activity increasing. What will that look like for you? If you were able to drive through the highway, I was out looking at this fire yesterday, and you can see fire up on the hill, up in a steep section above the number 1 highway. What I saw was no open flame, and I saw the column of smoke rising straight up into the air. So when I see that, to me, even though there's smoke there, it's generally good news. There's fuel that's burning off within the interior of the fire, which is ultimately reducing the risk. The risk would come when the winds pick up and embers start to be pushed and drawn, and the fire behavior picks up, and you start to see crowning. So we're not seeing that right now. We're seeing calmer columns. We're seeing lower flame activity, and we just don't see a big wind event in the next 3 to 4 days. So those are some of the challenges, or some of the good news we're having. Some of the challenges would be, again, the long-term forecast. We're not sure what that looks like. We know hot and dry will mean an increase. We know that we've had challenges flying our aircraft because of smoke. Our firefighters are not just on the ground, they're also pilots and officers in the sky. And so when it gets really smoky, it is hard to fly. Having said that, yesterday, we were able to utilize our entire fleet of 17 aircraft on both fires within the complex, and more so on the Bush Creek East wildfire. So that was a good story for us. A little bit cleaner air allows us to fly. And then I just wanted to close up by talking about sort of the fire perimeter that you see. And I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about some of the challenges we have on this fire. Anytime you see a fire that's shaped somewhat like this with these running tentacles and these long reaches and these fingers, these are very challenging fires for us to fight. Putting a fire crew in a bay that's surrounded by fire is very difficult. We won't do it if it's not safe. We're always looking out for entrapment. Our crews are by far our top priority. And just trying to figure out what this fire is going to do in this type of condition is hard. It's looking for fuel that it likes, and it's finding the right weather. And when those two conditions combine and you add in a little bit of steep terrain, that's when you can see these little growths or these longer big runs like we saw last week, up to 20 kilometers. So I just wanted to point that out to people. When you see a perimeter like this causes some really big challenges for us. And we work hard to make sure our people are safe, but certainly lots of work to do on this fire yet.
Mike, thank you. That's an excellent update. I want to address a couple of quick questions if I can, and then get to some more media questions for you. We've had some questions about hydro service in North Shuswap. We do know that hydro has been restored to much of Scotch Creek, and we're talking about the main area of the store and a few other areas of the water system. And then someone wanted confirmation that Sorrento Post Office was under an evacuation order. That is under the evacuation order area.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know if it's possible to talk about the prognosis for Sorrento, because it sounds like no damage there and people want to know what's going on and when they might get back in. Too early to say for that, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. But listen, this is the process that we undertake with local governments on a regular basis. As we've talked about many times, the authority to issue those alerts and orders doesn't sit with us. It sits with the local government, in this case, the CSRD. Having said that, though, we are engaged actively on that discussion around a particular area and any other area on the fire. What that looks like is people like myself, the incident commander, the operations staff, our fire behavior experts. We're always talking and looking at what areas are a risk from fire and what areas aren't. And certainly when that's going on, we're in constant discussion with the local government. I can assure you we're talking about that area and others, and we'll continue to do that. But the predictability of this is uncertain. And listen, there's still fire actively on the hill up above that area. We will do our best. We're not we're not looking to just sit in a very conservative place. We're desperate to get folks home, just like everybody else is. Believe me, we put a lot of effort into those discussions, and we'll continue to do that through the coming hours and days.
And anyone following the power situation from outside the area who has access to a website can check BC Hydro's power outage website. That information has been updated on a regular basis, and it's very current if you're looking for that information. Let's go to Carrie Tate. She has another question. Go ahead, Carrie.
Sorry, I'm just checking to see if you guys are now back in the North Shuswap area.
BC Wildfire back in the North Shuswap area, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, so Carrie, we've put all our crews back into the same places they were. Their objectives have not changed for several days. So the answer would be yes. If they were there before, they're there now. First day back in for us after some safety issues, but certainly the lines they're working on are not simple. They're in steep ground, and so they take a lot of time. For example, there's a line, down on the Sorrento side of the fire, which we were just talking about, coming up from a railway up to an old cut block. That's really hard work, and it's slow and methodical. And so our crews are out there, and they'll give us an estimate of timeline. And sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's 3 or 4. But all of our guard lines that are out there are still ways away from being secured. But yes, Carrie, to answer your question, we do have our crews back in. Most of the crews went into the same flanks they were working 2 days ago.
Okay, thank you so much. We do appreciate that, Mike. You've given us some really important information. And speaking of which, I'd like to bring in Tracy Hughes, an information officer with the CSRD Emergency Operations Center, to talk about Alertable, the notification app, some changes to make it hopefully less confusing for people.
Yes, so we know a lot of people have been relying on Alertable, and during that sort of evolving situation, we got an increasing number of these alerts. So what we're doing right now is working with Alertable on a little bit of house cleaning. What it really means, bottom line, is that there are no changes to evacuation orders or alerts at this time, but you will be getting a notification from Alertable that there have been some changes. Basically, we've just consolidated some of these alerts so that you're not having to read through so many to understand the information. So when you get that message, please read it carefully, but understand that at this point, there are no changes to the evacuation alerts or orders. Now, this could change on a rapid basis, as we've heard from Mike. We're evaluating those situations on an hourly basis. So please, if you're getting alerts at this time, be sure to read through them, because it may mean no change, but there may also be a few changes coming down the line. But what we really don't want is people to see these changes happening and thinking that they need to panic or take immediate action. The immediate action you should take is to carefully read those posts on Alertable as they come through your phone, your text, or a voice call to your landline. There will be information provided on our website and on our social media platforms as well about any changes to the status of evacuation orders or alerts. So you can always go to our website, www.csrd.bc.ca, to double check anything you feel uncertain about, or you can call our EOC 250-833-3350.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's go to another question. Barbara is standing by. Barbara, if you could open your mic up and go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's Barbara Farkle with the South Shuswap Scoop. You've mentioned a number of things about the restoration of power already, and it seems to be emerging. With regards to the eastern side of things on the North Shore, can you comment on any changes or updates in terms of power availability there? I know there are some residents that are not in evacuation order or alerts that have no power. And what are the prospects there, and what might be something they can expect?
Certainly with power, that's a BC Hydro issue, and I know they're working pretty diligently right now. A number of poles down and some serious issues in those different areas.
Yeah, and they come to our briefings in the morning, and they are looking at some creative solutions to getting some of those areas like Anglemont and St. Ives up and running with power as soon as possible. The situation out there is such that they have a lot of work to do, but they are looking for some creative solutions to get those people power.
Okay, Barbara, thank you very much. Mike, there is a question here on the YouTube channel, and it's about guard construction in the Sorrento area. I know you've just come into the area. I don't know if you have enough information to talk about anything like that at this time.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen a little bit and show you what I do know.
Okay.
Come back to my drawing here. Please let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can see that. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So the most I can tell you is, I'm just going to scroll up and zoom in. This is a really big priority area for us. And as I talked about earlier, we do have a crew, one of our BC Wildfire Service Type 1 unit crews, working in this area here to try to secure a line from the rail guard up into, I believe, an old fire in the top here. And I apologize, I know the locals will know that better than I do, but progress is good. Still maybe a day or two away from completing that. And I know that's a steep section, but this is our main focus in here right now, is trying to construct that guard line up into this area. They're moving along, it's coming well. That's probably the best info I can give you on guard construction in the Sorrento area.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. It looks like we've wrapped up our media questions, and with that, I think we'll wrap up your portion. We've got a few more reminders here before we go. Any final thoughts before we catch up with you another time?
Yeah, I do. I'm just going to stop sharing here. I think one of the things that I wanted to talk quickly about is just the fact that, you know, sometimes I get asked, why don't I see firefighters out on the ground around my home? And I want to talk about that really quickly. The map that I just showed you showed those long fingers and flanks and tentacles of a fire that can find the fuel and the terrain they like when they get the wind and the weather that they like. Often our crews are there working on the risk, which might not be right next to you. It might not be the stump smoking across the field from you or in your yard. The risk would be a large head of fire picking up from a flank and taking a big run. And so that's what we call indirect attack. We're always prioritizing those areas, but often our crews are out there. They're just not where your eyes can see them. And they're working on a really hard work, you know, out on these big flanks, sort of distant from where you are, but where the risk to your property is most. So I just wanted to paint a picture of that sometimes the risk isn't what you can see. The risk can be quite farther away as fire grows and builds intensity. As we all know and have seen too much this year, it can be chaotic. And so that's where our crews are working. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, and then just thank people for their patience. We're doing our best. We're working hard with the local governments. We want you to go home. Our crews care deeply about that, and I appreciate your patience.
Mike, I should ask you just a quick question. I just noticed that someone has asked about water drops in the Sorrento area. When you're talking about aerial operations, there are a lot of considerations, and that's one reason why in areas that are under evacuation order, it becomes challenging for aerial operations if there are people present. Is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah, if you've ever worked underneath a helicopter that's bucketing, it's not a safe and comfortable place. In fact, we don't work underneath there. So we're dropping thousands of gallons of water from the air, and they knock trees over and they knock branches over. And as we talked about, those are the things that can injure and sometimes kill people. So when we're bucketing, our crews have to move out of the way. The buckets come in, they cool the ground down, and they run a cycle through that area. And then our crews go back in and do the hard work that they do of trying to attack the fire in various different ways. So aerial operations are a coordinated effort. Our crews are listening and talking all the time to the aircraft, but certainly there's a massive hazard that's there that I just don't think a lot of people are aware of, something we don't take lightly and we have to be very cognizant of. So when we have public or unknown people roaming through our workforce or areas or evacuation orders, sometimes we have to stop operations because it's just not safe. And when we stop operations, we're losing ground on containment. Our fires can pick up head of steam and grow and eventually, you know, cause impacts to infrastructure. So it might not seem like a big deal, but when people are underneath our helicopters and we're trying to work, we have to sometimes stop. And so that can be a really big impact on you know, holding a fire in place.
Mike McCulley with BC Wildfire Service, thank you very much. We do appreciate your time.
Thanks very much for having me.
We're going to wrap up from the CSRD here in Salmon Arm in just a moment. A couple of final words from Derek. Derek, we did have a question about whether there is a consideration that more houses could be impacted. And certainly this is an ongoing, very dynamic situation. So it's hard to comment on that. But the numbers that we did talk about, 131 structures lost, 37 partially damaged. Can you reiterate quickly what the plan is to get that information to people? And also a reminder, we're going to need some patience.
Yeah. So I first want to remind everybody or let everybody know that we got revised numbers as we were sitting down at this table here today. And we can expect those numbers to change slightly in one direction or another. They're not firm number yet. They're definitely preliminary. And we're working hard right now in the EOC to get a dashboard up and running. Our GIS department is working on that right now. They're estimating around 4 o'clock, and people, the members of the public and homeowners and residents of the area will be able to log in and see their home and see if it's been damaged or not. So that's the idea. And then in the coming days, we'll be contacting the homeowners that we do have that contact information for and letting them know what the situation is out there.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek, and great work done by a lot of people behind the scenes. A reminder that we are into some warmer temperature, and as Mike McCulley mentioned, humidity dropping, not expecting very strong winds at this time. And final word then to you, Tracy, on emergency support services. I had a chance to go to the reception center again today, and some incredible volunteers working behind the scenes to make sure that people get those supports while they're out on evacuation order.
Absolutely. Those supports continue, and we are working very hard over at Emergency Support Services to provide people's needs. I do want to remind people in the Anglemont and St. Ives area, if you're feeling like it's time to come out of that area, even though you're not on an official evacuation order, you are welcome to do that. We will coordinate that with you. You can call the EOC at, again, 250-833-3350. And once you're able to come to one of our reception centers, you will have emergency support services available to you.
I'll leave you with 3 numbers. You heard the Emergency Operations Center number for emergency support services. The number to call is 250-833-3360. For donations, if you're looking to help out, please call the number to coordinate your efforts, your whatever it is you want to donate, whether it's funds or items. Please call first, though, 250-833-3396. And for livestock, if you still need assistance in that area, the number to call is 250-833-3399. Thank you very much for joining us for this briefing. There will be more information coming out from the CSRD in the hours ahead and certainly in the days ahead. So do check the official sources for more information. Thank you both. And thanks to Mike McCulley. We'll sign off for now. Thank you and stay safe.